Hello and welcome to Power Ballads. I am thrilled to have my guest join me today. Arielle Fristoe is one of my Leadership Atlanta alumni friends, but also just an all-star. Actually, we're going to have to come back on this, Arielle, because we not only are alums, but we were cabin mates. So that we might have to touch on. But really the reason, in addition to just being an awesome, amazing, and fun and wonderful person, you have made such a huge impact in Atlanta and through your gifts in the arts, in terms of really, spreading the word about and helping to inspire and empower conversations about social justice. So I want to hear all about you, but I really want our, listeners to learn about Out of Hand Theater and learn about you and your superpowers. Are you ready to do this?
I am ready.
Excellent. Okay, so I started to say a little bit about you, but will you kind of, in probably a more, measured and maybe coherent way than myself, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yes. So in addition to being Missy Taylor's classmate from Leadership Atlanta, class of 22, two classes. I am also the founder and artistic director of Out of Hand Theater, winner of the New York Times Best Theater of 2020, and the Governor's Award for the Arts and Humanities 2021.
Congratulations. That is so amazing. So amazing. So one of the things I learned about you early on is Out of Hand Theater is not your traditional kind of theater, right? It's not sort of the, we're going to, go to a certain place and sit back and just be entertained. I think you take a much more sort of interactive and engaging way, which is why you win the awards that you do. So what is the mission of Out of Hand Theater?
Our mission is to use the tools of theater to help work for social justice. So we're actually a social justice organization first. It's just the way we do it is through theater. And we have a recipe for everything we do. Our recipe is art plus information plus conversation equals social change. So what the art is there for is it's there to open people's hearts and engage their emotions and put a human face and a story on data, or like on an issue that's not reaching people the way that it needs to in order to make lasting change. So we feel like that's, and it's fun that there have now been scientific studies done that show that theater improves empathy and changes attitudes. And actually it does that in the most conservative people. So it's not like many people would think just preaching to the choir. So that's the art part. But then we feel like it's really important to also give people the facts, that so that it's not just a story. It's not just one person's story. It's a community issue that really needs to be addressed. And we want to show you what that looks like in numbers through the information. But then we also want to ask people while they're still in the room with their feelings and the facts to process all that and make some kind of plan for action through the conversation. So what are you going to do differently going forward than you did before now that you've had this experience?
It's just, I love it. You break down some of those barriers, right, through the art, help kind of arm people, right, with credible information, and then give them that opportunity to process and share in community. It's really, having been able to go to one of the equitable dinners, I got to experience that firsthand, and it was really amazing. The conversation part is just, I was with a group of strangers, and we're talking about difficult, weighty topics like racial justice. And yet I felt like I had conversations with these folks that went so much deeper than just the traditional kind of surface level conversations you have with strangers. We were really getting to the heart of things.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. And that is exactly what we're going for. And there are a lot of really amazing groups that do these kind of conversations without the theater component. And I think that work is so important. But then the unique thing that we get to bring to it is the story, is the emotional part. And that's exactly how we found that it works, is that like having that common experience in the room to talk about really helps people get so much further faster and get deeper in the conversation than they do without it. And then we just also love to feed people. There's something magical happens when you break bread with people. That is like the other really great part of we try to include food in as many of our programs as possible, because there's something lovely about, particularly when you are a guest or a host in someone's home or their school or their house of worship or even their business or their nonprofit, that makes people just so much more respectful and kinder and like better listeners when they and then when they sit down and share a meal together with this art and this conversation, there's something magical that happens.
There really is. It's brilliant. What gave you the idea to put this recipe together? And when did you found?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to give away my age with that one, because I started Out of Hand in 2001. So I was just a baby. I was, a mere 5-year-old, of course.
Child prodigy.
Yes.
Yep.
So, a group of friends from college and I, we were young. We were in our mid-20s. We got out of school and kind of looked around and thought, okay, what can we do with our theater degrees? We're theater artists. This is what we really want to do. But we looked around even back then in 2001 and thought, oh, there are already a lot of really good theater companies in Atlanta. Like, Atlanta doesn't actually need another theater company. And we're never going to be able to compete with the star power or the budget size of the Alliance Theater or Broadway at the Fox, never mind film and television, which are the real competition for a lot of people's time. So we thought, okay, well, let's just not ever try to then. Let's never do something that you could get at another theater company or on TV. In fact, our very first slogan was, "You can't see this on TV." So instead, and it's evolved over time, but instead, even 20 whatever years ago, we thought, okay, let's only make work about the issues that matter the most to us and to our community. Let's make it in partnership with local experts, with the people who know the most about those issues. And then let's combine theater with other social interactions like meals and parties, so that, you could never see that on TV, so that you always had to be there live because you're having a conversation, you're eating. And we had some really wacky and wild experiments in the early days, but finally we settled on this model that we have today.
I love it. I love the experimentation process, right? I mean, it's like probably any great chef or baker, me not being either of those things, I don't really know, but when you understand the power of the ingredients, you can start to really play with them to figure out what's going to be that magical combination. And that's what you've gotten to and been able to refine and reform that, or reform, right, that into something really powerful.
And it's never done. It's still always changing. So, and that's years and the recipe will have changed. I guess that's probably true for chefs as well.
True. Yes. I can't imagine, right? And just knowing us too, I can't imagine doing the same thing, right, over and over again. And that's why, having been in this for 20 years, like the evolution process of that, what keeps it exciting and invigorating. So, all right. So, that what I'm going to lead this into is hearing about this amazing work that you're doing. I know it can feel uncomfortable to be asked, what's your superpower? But that is exactly what I've done to you. And if you were to describe kind of, what it is that you tap into, right, that allows you to be able to do these amazing things, how would you describe that? Or what would you say is your superpower?
I think my superpower is being able to look at a community issue or a group that's working on that issue and see a way that the arts can help.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that was a superpower because that's just like an odd quirk that I have. And I didn't, know that it was necessarily valuable or that other people weren't thinking the same thing I was. Until over time, I've realized like, oh, I see this connection. I see a thing that could happen and other people aren't seeing that. But once I tell it to them, they're often excited. So I think that's how I decided like, oh, I think that might be my superpower.
I love it. You know what, that whole sort of connectedness where you can see opportunity and see connection where others may not, is so powerful. And I imagine, so two things I want to explore with you, because one, I imagine that may show up in other parts of your life as well, and not maybe just with arts and organization. But I also just want to point out too that how important it is to have the people around us to help to illuminate kind of what our superpowers are. Right? Because the things that I think are truly our superpowers are the things that are very intuitive to us. So you just kind of assume that everybody gets it and sees it the same way. And until you start to get that feedback and you realize, oh, yeah, that's something different I'm bringing to this, right? That's when you can kind of like stand up a little taller and be like, this wasn't just dumb luck, right? This is something really powerful that I can tap into.
Wow, thank you for articulating that. I've never heard anybody explain that way, but that is exactly what I was thinking about me thinking like, oh, this might be obvious to everyone else, right? Other people going, no, that wasn't obvious.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, sadly, too often we don't have the opportunity to reflect on what our strengths are. And there's kind of this, I don't know, maybe this sort of false modesty that surrounds it, and particularly women, this kind of like, oh, we don't want to toot our own horn sort of thing. So we tend to downplay it. But no, that's where we can be our most effective. And it's authentic to you. So there's nothing that's bragging about that. That's just about being able to shine.
Thank you, Missy.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, this is why we sparked from the beginning. Not to mention that, we're also petite, firecrackers too. So I think there was just something, even just the physicality, we're like, I see you.
And I think we kept looking at each other across the room on race day as well.
Yeah. That is definitely true, because we were also two, I want to say, two white women very aware of our place and in this space, right?
Yes.
And wanting to honor and not be Karens.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I know I kind of threw out to you before, but I do want to circle back to it. Are there other things, other places in your life or experiences where that you can think about that are kind of this like, oh yeah, I see things coming together. I see connections that maybe, others don't.
Well, I think I've got a new one, actually. And when you first asked me that, I was like, oh gosh, I can't think of anything. I have no idea. But then, a minute later, I went, oh, yes, I do. So this is one that's sort of emerging, or I'm becoming aware of it, which is I think I know how to help other people do what I do. So I teach at Emory. I teach one course a semester. That is, I barely even have time for that, but I have done that for, I don't know, probably more than 12 years. I teach arts administration. And so part of it is all of that practice of helping college students, art students, and business students. It's a joint program. Think about how they might want to start their own arts nonprofit and what kind of benefit that could have to the community. None of them have ever looked anything like Out of Hand. I'm not saying, I'm not asking people to model on what I do, but just think about if you're a nonprofit, how are you going to benefit your community? I've figured out that I think I might have some consulting abilities. And then this is a really hard time for nonprofit arts organizations around the country.
Yeah.
And I know more about theaters than any others, but it seems to be, pretty widespread. But among theaters, there's all of these wonderful, and some of them really old theaters that are closing, or at least having to lay off staff or close programs, at least temporarily. It looks bad. And so the newest thing I'm thinking is like, how can I help other people use some of the skills that I've built at Out of Hand? And I've been incredibly lucky, and also I work hard. But I've been incredibly lucky in that I've come up with this model that's made Out of Hand really financially stable. Like we always end a year in the black. We have for more than a decade. And, we've got operating reserves, and we're growing at a really good pace. And we do that through community-based work for social justice, not through like Broadway style shows. And I would love to help other artists and arts organizations figure out how they can use their skills to benefit their community and make a living as an artist while they're doing it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So being able to really draw on all of your experience and perspectives to help kind of spark that insight, right, in others. And that's got to feel amazing, right? When you start to kind of see like, oh, have you thought about it in this way? Or, right, there's, open yourself up to kind of exploring this avenue and seeing people get excited and pursue that.
Yeah. So it's exciting for artists to figure out how they can be valued and get paid and make exciting work, and to figure out how nonprofits and community groups who are working on these really important issues can be benefited by the arts. And then the last part of it that's cool, that's just sort of like an extra add-on, is that it also helps elevate the role of the arts. People think of the arts often as like, it's a luxury item. It's a nice extra, but it's not essential. But having artists be valued community members who you want to have at the table when important decisions are happening, who are part of that brain trust is really exciting too. And I mean, I've had amazing opportunities to do that I never in a million years thought would happen.
Yeah. Did you grow up in an arts family? Do you have, yes, your family sort of big supporters? Tell me a little bit about that.
My parents met at Boston Children's Theater when they were in high school. So
my goodness.
They were both child actors. And then my father went on to run a small experimental theater company in Boston. And then the way I ended up in Atlanta was that my dad took a job as the artistic director of Theater Emory and was a professor at Emory for many years. He's now long retired. But that's how I got to Atlanta. So I have been in the theater all of my life.
That is incredible. That's awesome. Well, I have deeper appreciation for the arts because of my children in particular, and my brother. My brother's an artist. He's a screen printer, graphic designer, kind of visual artist. His wife is a ceramicist and sculpture, and just they're oozing with talent, right? Yeah, I mean, my husband loves, art. He's works a lot with like collage. My daughter is in theater as well. We're on the backstage, right? Things. My son is talented. I don't know what happened to me. Okay. They got all of the artistic talent. I just got the colorful looks. Like I get asked the question a lot of times, are you an artist or are you an art teacher? And I'm always very flattered, but I'm like, nope, I'm not. Can't cut, can't draw. It's I can talk. That's about what I can do.
Well, and working with you, so we were in the same project group at Leadership Atlanta, and working with you on that, I got to witness your creativity close up. So you were an incredibly creative person. You were a creative powerhouse, just not exactly an artist.
Well, thank you for saying that. I thought I was just kind of bossy. That's but
No.
Oh my goodness. Well, tell me kind of, one of the other things I really want to explore in this interview series is, both sort of what people's superpowers are, but also what inspires you and what gives you hope. Because I think that you can not have too much positivity infused into the world. And especially it feels like the last few years, we've needed that, right? So what inspires you? How do you kind of continue to feed and nurture your inspiration?
Uh, well, I will say there is a quote that keeps me going when I question what I'm doing on my bad days. And one of the things that I sometimes question about my work is like, white lady, what are you doing trying to be a community leader in racial justice? Is this really inappropriate? Like, what am I? So on my bad days, sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I go, what is this? What am I doing? And so one of the things that has really fueled me is there are just so many wonderful books that have come out, in the past 10, 20 years, in addition, of course, to the work of the civil rights leaders in this country. But the quote is from the book My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem, which is one of my favorites. There's so many great ones, but that is one of my favorite books on racial justice. And in the, oh gosh, and I might get this, I don't have the quote in front of me, so I might get it slightly wrong, but in it, he says, if we are to dismantle white supremacy, a lot of that work is going to have to be done by white people. And then he addresses white people as a group, basically, and he says, white people, if you sit back and wait for people of color to lead you in this work, you are only upholding the myth of white helplessness in the face of racial issues.
Oh, that is spot on and powerful. Wow.
So when I need to be reminded of what I'm doing and why I should keep doing it, I go find that quote and read it.
Yes. Yes. Wow. I remember coming to sentiments like that, right? Coming and wrestling too with like, what's my role? What's my place in this? And kind of coming to that understanding too, that there's a lot of work that white people need to do. And there are some things that like, it's our responsibility, which I very much take from that quote, right? There's a responsibility in it. There's also just like, I can communicate with you and connect with you because we have similar backgrounds and experiences. So when I need to connect in and maybe speak some hard truths, that's like a way I can use my privilege, right? To be able to do that.
Yes.
And also just, and even when I don't have like close connections with people, I know that there are certain things that I can say that others would bear a disproportionate, consequence or burden in saying. So yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. Amazing.
I mean, and then I could go on, I could tell you, but I want to make sure I leave time for all your questions. So tell me.
Listen, I want to hear more from you than me rambling on. So what else? What else inspires you, or what have you, seen or experienced that you think would inspire others?
So this is, gosh, this might be too personal to me, so I'll keep it short, but I have often felt kind of alone with my colleagues at Out of Hand over the years, because there aren't a lot of other companies like us. And so sometimes I go, wow, I really wish I had more best practices to follow, like just more other people to talk to who are doing things similar to us. And last winter, I was invited to write an article for the International Journal of Arts Management, which I'm like, oh my goodness, I am not an academic. Like this is not my wheelhouse, but I am, and I'm still working on it. But through that process, I had to do a literature review, which is also like something, I like read a lot more academic stuff than I normally do. And I came upon these researchers who I should have known probably, but I didn't know, I'm busy out there being a practitioner, who were saying exactly what I do. And I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. There's, it's a small handful. I think I know of maybe 3 of them, maybe 4. None of them are in Georgia. And there's, one of them is someone, a woman in Florida, a researcher who sort of theorized an idea of arts-based community engagement. But she wrote it as a theory of like, this is a thing that that really could work, but someone would have to test it. And so I'm hoping I'll hear back from her, because I wrote to her and I was like, guess what? I do exactly the thing that you talk about in this paper.
I love it.
People who I reached out to wrote back to me right away and have become friends and I now feel like I have more of a network than I did before.
That is so cool. That is really awesome. It's finding your people, and being able to connect in that way. That's amazing. All right. And in the lines of some inspiration things too, I had asked you about your power song. Do you have a power song?
Yes. My power song is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. And it is not just my power song, it is my entire father's family's power song. So I inherited this. I am lucky to be part of this group.
That's incredible.
So anytime that my dad's side of the family gets together, from the moment that I was born until now, at some point during the day or weekend, somebody will put that album on, and when that happens, everybody gets up and dances until it's over, and everybody sings.
Wow, what a bonding moment. And that just like, yeah, that's like an atom bomb of power, but like in a positive way. Not destructive, but
and it's perfect because it's a song about my work,
Exactly.
So it was just like a fun song, but now it's so meaningful to me.
That is incredible. Is there a story behind kind of how that song came to have so much sort of meaning in your family, or kind of become that bonding moment?
Gosh, I should ask. Missy, it has never occurred to me to ask them that question. So I can tell. So my father grew up very poor in the projects in East Boston with a single mom and a bunch of brothers and a sister. I mean, really, they just had nothing and a really hard life. And I think that they really embraced the civil rights movement in part because of that. And they, in the poverty that they lived in, they might have actually had more opportunity to have real experiences with people who looked different than them, than a lot of other, than people who with more money, I think, often had at that time. Right. And so I think they all really committed themselves to social justice, and particularly to racial justice, at a pretty early age. And I think that might be partly why. So I imagine it's connected to that, but I've never asked like, hey, how'd y'all pick this album? Like, why do we always?
Yeah. Wow. That is powerful. I love to kind of see how, family legacy, like our parents' kinds of upbringings and experiences infuse and shape us too, right? And not in a, I don't know, not in a, you must follow in my footsteps, but just sort of this very authentic and organic approach, right? The things that your heart are drawn to are connected back to the things that shaped your parents and were so important to them.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. No pressure or anything to pass that on to your wonderful child.
Oh my goodness. Right. When Tweed gets home from school today, guess what we're doing? Gotta put on the album.
Absolutely.
Actually, so Adam, my husband, is going to a movie with a friend tonight, and Tweed and I are planning and having like a pizza date. So that's what we're going to do.
All right. I love it.
Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah. Anytime. All right. Well, I know that we need to wrap up, but before we do, I just want to talk a little bit about Leadership Atlanta. And because that being a shared experience that, goodness, I don't know about you, but there's so much hype going into it, like what you hear about Leadership Atlanta, and everyone's like, it's life, changing and transformative. And I went in a little bit like, hey, I'm excited, but I don't know that this experience can ever live up to all the hype and all that's been said about it. But yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I think having the opportunity to create like networks and friendships and community as an adult, like it just doesn't, you don't have as many chances to do that, right? Like the last time I really had probably as an intense and kind of immersive experience together would have been in college. And so I think that was just, I don't know, one of the beautiful things about it. And I love that we still stay connected, and I don't get to as many of the events, but that'll be a New Year's resolution to get to more of those. But if you were to pull out, a memory or two that really stands out to you, or an experience, across the Leadership Atlanta experience that, had a lot of meaning to you, or has really stuck with you, what would that be?
Okay. Well, the first thing I was thinking about was about one of my favorite things about Leadership Atlanta is that it's so wonderful as an alum, not just as a member of the class. And oftentimes I have found before that you do something wonderful with a group of people, but it's transitory. You don't necessarily stay in touch with that people, and it doesn't build after that. And so my favorite thing right now is that not only do I have so many wonderful new friends who were in my class, and we all went through this whole year together, including you. So that's Ann Tamarin, who is now Tamarin is, I'm hoping she'll be my best friend for life, literally. Right. So that's, I got a best friend for life out of that experience, but just so many amazing people in our class. But then on top of that, all of the people who I have met and become friends with from other classes since we graduated, that has been a transformative experience. And I just recently went to the last Takeover Tuesday cocktail party and brought a guest with me. And I just had this wonderful experience of introducing her to people all over the room and going like, my goodness, as I'm telling her what these people do, this is the most amazing collection of people. I mean, the nonprofits that these people run and the business that they do and the service to the community, it's just is unparalleled. So I suddenly felt like a dignitary or something, like introducing right. To this range of people. So that's, yeah. I mean, it is really like the gift that keeps on giving at the moment.
It is so true. I will say, like, one of the most fun experiences was coming back to opening retreat as an alum, and just the freedom of like, oh, I'm just here to support. There's no pressure. Like, I know what's going to happen, and I just get to hang out with people I love and meet new people. that was amazing. Even though going through that, what was so wild for me, I think, and for many of us, of course, our class was delayed for a year because of COVID. And when we came back, it was like the first time of really full on going to something with a lot of people. And I remember being a little worried, like, do I still remember how to socialize?
And we had to wear masks to
And we
so
had
much of our year, which was uncomfortable, and it was harder to connect with people. Yeah,
And it was just like, I don't know if can I still do this? You know?
Yeah.
But we did, and it was amazing. And I also originally was like, and we're staying in cabins.
Yes.
And
With spiders.
with spiders, and how much roughing will there be? But it was not bad. But I see, the reason I didn't get a whole lot of sleep during that time is those little hard cots were not very comfortable. So why sleep anyway?
Yes.
I don't know what you and Tamara must have thought of me, but I know that I like was creeping in after you two were sound asleep and dragging myself out of bed after you were up and ready and off.
And that's not because we went to bed early.
I know, right? It wasn't, no, you, I don't know, take me away, a little bit of freedom, and suddenly I'm like, oh, I can't miss anything.
Okay, but it occurred to me there's one other thing about our year that was like so impactful to me, and that is I just loved that race weekend was first and that it was the thing that framed everything else. I did not know that going into Leadership Atlanta. I didn't know, are they going to think I'm really radical or really weird? I don't know who these people are going to be. And so I just was so pleasantly surprised to go, oh no, what they're going to do. The first thing we're going to do together after opening retreat is dive as deep as we can over a weekend into racial inequity in Atlanta. And that's going to be the lens that we look at everything else for the whole year through it. I've never done another leadership program that did that. I found that very impressive.
That was amazing. And it was interesting. I'd heard little bits and pieces because, nobody wants to give away kind of the full experience. And so we won't either for future Leadership Atlanta alum. But
I just said.
No. But I heard it from, and I'm saying particularly from white people, traumatizing, I think is the adjective that would often be. And I did not feel I was so excited to be there. And I was also so enamored with the facilitator, even though on the first day, well, anyway, can't say anything more. So intriguing, everyone. But that was because I felt like you did, this is real. We are having real conversation, side by side conversation. And again, we got to go deep. I mean, it was your out of hand theater we didn't realize the theater part.
Yep, until later.
But it was so, yeah. One last thing I'll say on that, just on the experience.
I have to go. I have to get in the conference. I'm sorry. I better go.
That's all right. All right. I'm going to let you go. We'll do part 2 of this.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ariel. I just love you. And I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And thank you for doing this interview with me.
Thank you, Missy. I love you. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you. You too. All right. Take care. Bye.
Good.
Power.
Good. Power. Good. Power. Good.
Power.
Good.
Power.
Good. Good. Power. Good. Power. Good.
Power.
Good.
Power.
Good.